Good morning and good afternoon to our audience from all around the world. You've been joining us every week, and today we have the fifth edition of the Leadership in Travel and Hospitality webinar series, where we are speaking to eminent leaders across the travel and hospitality ecosystem on their personal journeys, views on the current crisis, and the future of hospitality. This is your host, Apurva Chamaria, Chief Revenue Officer at RateGain, and joining me is an amazing personality, Mr. Saurabh Rai. Saurabh is the Executive Vice President, South Asia, Middle East, Africa, and Australasia for Preferred Hotels and Resorts. Saurabh joined Preferred Hotels and Resorts in 2008, and since then has rapidly grown through to get promoted as the EVP for the region. During his tenure with Preferred Hotels and Resorts, Saurabh has grown the portfolio in India from 2 properties to 29 world-class properties and enhanced its presence across the Middle East, solidifying key relationships with major partners such as Katara Hospitality, Leela Palace Hotels and Resorts, ITC Hotels, and the Palazzo Versace, Dubai. I was speaking to Saurabh before we started, and now there are about 200 properties in his region. As a testament to his fantastic knowledge and command over the hospitality industry, Saurabh was ranked amongst Power 100 top 100 most influential people in hospitality by the Hotelier India magazine in 2013. Interestingly, Saurabh started his career at the Oberoi and since then has worked with Imperial before finally moving to Preferred. So Saurabh, first of all, a very, very warm welcome to you from both RateGain and all the attendees live on Facebook and on Zoom.
Well, Apurva, thanks very much for that stellar introduction. It feels a little awkward to see that stack up above myself on call. So, but a big thank you to you and the RateGain team for having me over on the call. It is my pleasure.
So many congratulations on yesterday evening's acquisition of Beyond Green Travel. And it's such a hot theme. People are looking for more eco-friendly travel options and green. So amazing work by Preferred.
Thank you. Thank you very much. We are, sustainability has been a very strong core corporate value of ours. And, we just wanted a bigger platform to be able to express that on a global stage. And the acquisition of Beyond Green Travel is in keeping with that spirit. So thank you.
So in compliance of GDPR and other personal privacy norms, I would like to announce to the audience that we'll be recording the session for the benefit of some viewers who haven't been able to log in due to last moment work and have requested for the recording. Saurabh, maybe you can tell us a little bit about Preferred.
Good afternoon, good morning, everyone. Thanks for joining. A brief about Preferred Hotels and Resorts, like Apurva just said. We are now in 52 years, 52nd year of our operation. We guys started in 1968 in the United States. In a very small and limited manner. We were called IndyCorp, like Independent Hotel Corporation back in the day. Fast forward to 2004, where the Uberot family, which is the owning family of Preferred Hotels and Resorts, they actually bought the enterprise. And I actually joined the enterprise in 2008. So I'm 13 years into the business of Preferred. So Preferred Hotels and Resorts, as of date, is the single largest collection of independent hotels and small regional groups around the world. Our total hotel count is about 775 properties across 85 countries all around the world. And our business model is a little bit unique. We do not own or manage the hotels. So if you were to broadly split the world of hospitality and hoteliering into two, on one side is the branded space, which is of course very well understood, the big hard brands like Marriott, Accor, Hilton, Hyatt, and whatnot. And the other side is the independent space. So you can conveniently consider Preferred Hotels and Resorts as one of the largest ambassadors, consolidators, collaborators, connectors in the independent hotel space. So if all our members are independently owned hotels, independently owned and operated hotels, or regional chains, independent hotel like the Imperial in New Delhi, the Palazzo Versace in Dubai, a regional chain like the Leela Palaces Hotels and Resorts in New Delhi, the Fullerton Hotels in Singapore and Sydney, the Montage Hotels in US. So we have about a 50-50 split. Half the portfolio is comprised of regional chains, and the other half is singular independent properties. And what we do essentially, Only thing we don't do is we don't put our brand on the mascot of the building, and we don't operate the property. Otherwise, our 5 service tenets largely are global sales, global marketing, including a loyalty program, end-to-end electronic distribution, quality assurance, and cost savings by leveraging our global muscle. So we pretty much play the role of a big brand's corporate office and support and collaborate with the independents to make them equally competitive and well distributed, well marketed as the hard branded space. So we are more of an equalizer that gets independence up to the competitiveness of a global hard brand.
With 700 plus properties, you would be one of the top luxury chains, if not amongst the top 3 globally.
Yes, indeed. I think factually speaking, Apurva, in terms of hotel count, we really are the biggest. And lately there has been, when I say lately, I take a timestamp of the last 4 years in particular. There has been a lot of consolidation in the independent space side too. So a lot of our traditional competitors have been bought out, sold off, or merged into. If you look at someone like World Hotels, they've been sold twice over now in the last 5 years. Someone like Design Hotels first got into Starboard and now is actually part of the Marriott cluster. So, in terms of where a lot of the independent competitors of ours started, they've had a bit of a metamorphosis in their DNA in terms of what they stood for back in the day, let's say about 4 or 5 years ago, to how they've transcended and where they've come to be now. So we feel solid about staying true to our ethos and our business model and collaboration structure with the independent players, and we remain to be one of the biggest ambassadors in this space for sure.
Saurabh, under your leadership in this whole region, Preferred has really grown, and it's become such a powerful, well-recognized brand. So luxury travelers trust it, hotel asset owners trust it, because in some ways you're like a marketplace. You have asset owners on one side and luxury travelers on the other side. So we would love to hear about your whole journey in this region with Preferred, and what are some of the amazing things you guys have done and the audience can learn from.
Sure. So would you want me to focus more first on the brand journey, Apurva, or the question is more about myself?
I think both, Saurabh. You've also had a can learn from. So,
well, thank you. So let's focus on the brand first, if that's okay, because that has been a very fulfilling part of our journey. So as I was mentioning, the family, we are a privately owned company headquartered out of Newport Beach, California, but a truly global enterprise now. So under the Uperov family, we re-engineered, rethought through our business model. And by the time I came on board in 08, beginning 08, is when the company had just about started to express itself under the new structure. So where we started off was with a single hotel in India, which is the Imperial, plus some very small properties around. I think the keystone of our success has been a very thoughtful and a structured approach to our development and portfolio expansion, if you will, because we knew our business model isn't for everyone. So we took a lot of time in assessing and determining who is the right partner for us. You see, because as a sales, marketing, distribution, quality representation partner, we rely wholesomely on operating capability and on-property servicing of our partner hotel. So we have to go out and determine who are the choicest independent operators who would make a great partner for us, and we'd make a great partner for them. They have to be complementary, symbiotic relationship both sides, right? So that is where we started and initiated discussions with some of the best known brands regionally, like pride and glory of Indian hospitality, like the Leela Palaces Hotels and Resorts, which back in the day was a 4-hotel entity under the leadership of Honorable Chairman Captain Nair. And from there, it kind of expanded. Now it's 8 hotels and very poised to grow over the next few years. So that's been a great journey. So what we did, Apurva, is that we sat down with literally the map of India, right? And we identified itineraries. We identified key gateway cities with international airports. We identified key state capitals that had up and coming corporate demand, corporate hubs, IT districts, tech parks, export-oriented industry, etc. And at the same time, we also identified the leisure hotspots, right? So Rajasthan became a full itinerary by itself, Goa, Kerala, and the big Indian cities everyone knows, right? So, and then we, in a very structured and a calm and patient way, without any gun to our head, we went about pacing ourselves, you know, having slow but stable dialogues. And, you know, rest is all history. I think every 3 years, we ended up developing, you called the number out of 29, where I'm very happy to confirm that, you know, I think mark of a great brand, great company, great leadership is the team that you build, right? So I'm very happy to confirm that our team in India and South Asia has taken the baton, you know, far up from where I left it. Now we are north of 40 hotels in India and Southeast Asia, with bigger part in South Asia, with Maldives included in there. And then what happened to the company, Apurva? I'm now kind of draw a parallel between the journey in India to our journey globally as a brand. So I've been here 13 years with the enterprise, and I feel like I've been here 13 months. That is my current mental makeup and the state of my excitement and my degree of application. And that is largely fueled by one single factor, which is Preferred's ability to reinvent itself again and again and again. It's safe to say every 3 years, there's been a new version of reinvented model of Preferred hotels and resorts with some sweeping changes. And let me call out a few of these sweeping changes so that the audience is able to connect with this kind of, you know, journey of the brand. First, what we did was we were tracking the loyalty trends in hospitality space very aggressively. And we found out that we used to have a guest benefit program called I Prefer, and we have to dig in deep into a research and re-engineer, rethink the program and imagine it to be one of the largest points-driven program for the independent space, right? We were seeing the advent of SPG back then becoming bigger. Earlier Marriott Rewards in its early avatar, Hilton Honors, Hyatt Gold Passport. So we knew that the independent space would need a solution. So we were one of the early adopters, if not the earliest, of converting our benefit program into a points-driven program, which was a mammoth effort to relaunch a program which is pre-incubated and ongoing. So, you know, that changed the game for us. Another critical keystone that came after that is that, you know, we used to have multiple brands under Preferred Hotel Group, and we saw the market becoming very crowded. It was becoming cluttered and very crowded and very chaotic with so many new brands coming through. And what also started to happen is that a lot of hard brands also launched their independent collection, if you will, right? So Marriott launched Autograph Collection, Hilton came up with Curio, Starwood back in the day had luxury collection, but they came with Tribute portfolio. So a lot was happening, which told us that the brands are also watching the independent space. So what are we going to do? What is our response going to be? So we actually chose to do the opposite. Rather than building new brands, we pulled back and we collapsed our house of brands of 4 or 5 different brands into one branded house, calling ourselves simply Preferred Hotels and Resorts, one brand, one loyalty program I Prefer, one GDS code, one brand website, one singularity of clarity of pursuit going through. So this became a fleeting change in our go-to-market approach, in our tone of voice, in our modus of communication with our B2B partners, as well as the end consumer. It just delivered a singularity of message and delivery platform under Preferred Hotels and Resorts. So, just these fundamental changes, and these are not small changes, trying to induce such deep changes in a going concern where the business is going on as usual, and then you call upon this change on yourself. I think it's a very brave effort, but it's also very telling on Preferred's agility and appetite to respond to changes in the marketplace when it comes to consumers' buying behavior and basically changes in the industry. including the competitive landscapes and the B2B partners in the middle. So I hope that gives a bit of a texture in terms of the ongoing evolution of preferred. And tying that up with my journey, we spoke about India. And on the back of success that we delivered in India, I had the great privilege of repeating that success in Middle East, in Africa, in Australasia, and now also overseeing a great market for us, which is Southeast Asia, which is a very mature market and a very settled market for us, albeit with great potential to grow as well.
Saurabh, in a way, you play the role of a talent scout, spotting opportunities, assets, and then, getting them on the preferred platform and making them shine.
Absolutely. As do you, my friend, as do you. It's a job of a great leader and a hunter, right? To be a talent scout morning, noon, and night.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So how do you, I've always been fascinated by the preferred model. How do you decide what asset is right, where the asset owner can see a lot of preferred and preferred can add a lot of value? And
Sure. So this is a very, very critical part of the process, Apurva. Now, the initiation happens in two different ways, right? We make outreach to a prospect that we believe is a good fit in many cases. And in several cases, partner hotel, potential prospects write into us. But either way, whether A talks to B or B talks to A, what follows is the most important step, which is to really determine the fitment. Like I underlined a few minutes ago, we fully appreciate that we aren't for everyone, and drawing in today's world an ROI estimation, what the partnership would mean and what the partnership would deliver to the owner's investment into the partnership is something we take very, very seriously. And we spend a lot of time in engineering this math to let our prospect know what is the up throttle potential for any relationship, right? And the potential of delivery, it varies. Like some hotels join us purely because they see us as a great platform of like-minded independent hotels. They don't expect anything else out of us. It's the effect of camaraderie, it's the brand rub-off and the spirit of collaboration, and they're satisfied with that. But that number is less and less because we live in a very, very ROI-centric world, and why not? There's opportunity cost to investment. The converse is an example of, let's say, if you take a multi-segment city hotel with corporate, leisure, MICE, retail, loyalty, induced demand, where we play a multi-segment game, that is really a full storyboard for us that gives us a great opportunity to deliver tremendous amount of incremental revenue, because we are able to basically induce uptick in each segment. And we deploy a segment-wise strategy. We have a strategy for corporate, for leisure, for group business, for retail, stroke loyalty induced angle, and then also for distribution efficiencies, right? Because a lot of times we work with independent hotels who do not have their distribution set up in the most ideal manner to maximize the reach around the world to key source markets, and sometimes even emerging markets that the hotel may not even be aware of, right? So this is the step that we spend a lot of time in working the ROI and aligning expectations. And we go from there. As some of our listeners may know, under Preferred Hotels and Resorts, we've got 5 distinct collections because, over 750 hotels worldwide is a big mass. So our collections range from Legend, LVX, Lifestyle, Connect, and a separate one for extended stay stroke service apartment solution called the Preferred Residences. So these are the 5 collections. Then we go on to the step of determining what collection a property would potentially sit into, and upward and onward from there.
So Saurabh, there are 2 schools of thought in the world of luxury travel. I've heard people in the industry say that luxury traveler around the world is the same. So their expectations are the same. They expect from a property or a travel experience is the same. So firstly, my question to you is it the same that, and you handle like a very vast region. So do you think it's the same? And if it is not the same, how is it different, and what will change post-COVID? What are you telling your properties? What are you hearing back from your asset owners? What will be the big change in luxury travel?
So, it's a very deep and a broad question, Apurva. So, what I would say is that if you look at the segment of luxury travel, there is 100% some degree of homogeneity and a common behavior to it, definitely, right? However, given what was already happening in pre-COVID world, in the space of luxury travel, there was sub-segmentation already coming through within luxury travel. And in post-COVID, that sub-segmentation has only gotten fast-forwarded. It's gotten accelerated now. It's like sub-segmentation on steroids. So I think it is definitely a wise move to restudy and not assume what the luxury travel segment stood for a few, let's say, up until late last year. Going forward, some very distinct sub-segments with their own trends and behaviors are going to evolve. And let me pick up just a few in here. The common threads about the personalization of service, non-intrusiveness of service delivery, experiential element of travel is going to consistently apply. However, let me just take maybe one or two examples of subcategorization. I think if you look at luxury travel, and let's assume it's the most affluent traveler in this space with the highest spending capability, people in that strata of society are currently undergoing a deep introspection about the purpose of themselves, purpose of their communities, purpose of what they do on the business front and why they travel. And we are hearing more and more that there is going to be a very distinct shift from me to we, even in luxury travel space. It has, if you look at $1,000 a night spend, it has in pre-COVID era, a lot about self-pampering, right? The best accommodation, the best spa, the best bottle of wine, the best experiential dinner. I want to come back and give myself a memory. So that's the me part of it, right? Changing, fast forward in post-COVID, I think there is a more of a thinking now shifting from what I take from a luxury travel experience to what I leave behind post a luxury travel experience. That's the we, that's the sense of community, that's the sense of purpose and giving back, right? And there I would basically connect this to the second subcategorization, which is about sustainability. We genuinely believe, and sustainability, Apurva, gets at times envisioned in a more restricted sense, directly linked to maybe the eco and the environment, but that is just one of the tenets of sustainability. It's a lot about local heritage, history, community, people, the local economy. So it's a much broader sense, and of course, environment, right? So if you look at sustainability as a broader concept that it truly is, luxury travel and connecting with sustainability and the pursuit of giving back is going to be a much stronger criteria going forward in terms of influencing purchase behavior. And the last point out there that I would say on luxury travel is that, I think those of us who do the mistake of relying a lot on price and discounting as a strategy in the luxury segment are going to find ourselves in a space where the needle probably won't move as much as you were expecting, even after discounting. It is really about experiential travel. If your destination and the hotel allows for it, it's about transformational travel, which is experiential travel on steroids, right? How it changes you, right? Does the travel experience leave an imprint on you for the rest of your life to come? So those are the thoughts by which we can enrich experience and create more value commercially and personally for our travelers in the luxury segment, and not just look at pricing in isolation. So just some broad strokes in there. Hope that gives you some context.
Absolutely. So, that brings us to this whole topic of what you call transformational travel or experiential travel. So, independent owners and managers are very agile and flexible. They have that independent nature to say that here's what I want to do within my hotel, within my market. That could mean partnering with locals to provide artisanal offerings, or do something around sustainability, or, you know, create a mini package around a local day trip. Can you tell us some stories where, you know, preferred properties have partnered with local groups to provide a world-class experience? And, you know, what is your view around experiential travel driving a price and a rate premium?
Sure, thank you. This is right up our alley, so thanks for asking. So you're right, independent hotels are very agile, and a thought that I'm personally very passionate about, Apurva, is hyper-localization. I've put, like, maybe this is one common theme where I've put more than 5 posts on it, and, you know, I write a lot about it. It is because it scores home with all of these parameters of sustainability, you know, giving back to your community, hyper-localization, etc. So let me ask a question to our audience, and you could just close your eyes in 5 seconds and answer to yourself in here. Is if you think, and I'm going to call out some destinations at large out here, okay? Let's start from back home in India. Let's imagine Jaisalmer, Udaipur, right? Let's go to Amalfi in Italy, right? Let's go to Marbella in Spain. Let's go to Bali in Indonesia, and let's stop the flight in Koh Samui in Thailand, right? So there are 5 or 6 destinations, right? And now you can close your eyes. If you had, let's say, if you had about $300 a night, US dollars to spend, right? On these very experiential locations, destinations that resonate with culture, with history, with cuisine, with gourmet, with wellness, with community, with, you know, with people, and, you know, experiencing their local lifestyle, right? And you have 2 choices. Either you could stay in hard brand X, you could fill the X yourself. You know, I'd love to stir up more controversy, but I won't, right? Or you could potentially stay at the best rated independent signature experience in town. Where would you stay? Which of the 2 you think is going to connect more with the locality, the locales of the destination, right? So now you know your answer, you know, and there's no right or wrong answer. I know my answer because we believe in travel, as you can see my background, and we believe in the independent space, right? So this is where, Apurva, to your point, independents score a lot because independents are free to curate the experience like an artist. Many of our hotels, and I can take several examples, right? Let's take examples from, again, all these destinations, maybe some in the interest of time. Let's take the Imperial New Delhi, the Leela Palace New Delhi, right? Let's take the example of the Siam in Bangkok, the Fullerton Bay in, the Fullerton Bay in Singapore, the Alpina in Gstaad, Finca Cortesin in Spain. So if you just now look at these examples of the hotels that I'm calling out, right? These are, each hotel is a storied experience. And when you take the storybook and you flip a page, you would see that these hotels have gone out and locally sourced artwork. They have induced history of the destination, the culture of the destination in the interior decor, architecture, public spaces, in-room experience, dining and gourmet, spa and wellness. So it's a complete experience end to end, stitched, keeping the sense of place in mind. So that is where we feel that the level of freedom in an independent hotel's expression, when done right, I'd be remiss if I say this uniformly for all independent space. No, that is not true. That if you are to just pick out the best and the celebrated independent hotels, you would most often find them to be the best expression that connects the most with the sense of place of that particular destination. So that is a little bit of a perspective in why and how we believe an independent expression best embodies the signature of the destination. These hotels actually become the destination in miniature.
Absolutely right. And we've had some very, very interesting examples across the regions which you manage. Saurabh, the big elephant in the room question is, how do you see recovery happening? So you have various countries which you manage. Would love to get your perspective on how deep cut and how and when will the recovery happen?
Sure. So, I think pretty much majority of the audience today is from the industry. So I think everyone is looking for that silver bullet answer, right? So, and trying to gaze into the crystal ball, as are we, right? So I will present our most researched opinion presented by our business leaders across domains. So we've had, what I'm about to tell you in the next 30 seconds is our common aggregate opinion of our industry experts across segments of sales, corporate leisure mice, our expert marketers and loyalty experts, plus the distribution champions that we have on board. There's a lot of feed that we've taken from around the world, from big source markets, whether it's US, Europe, China, India, Southeast Asia, Australia. And we've been running town halls pretty much, almost twice a month to update our hotels on these trends. So, what I'm about to present is an amalgamation of all of it. So the way we see recovery, to give you some, a broad context in terms of how we see this, because, we do have limited time here, is we feel that the occupancy levels of post-COVID or close to it are going to possibly come back after a long marathon of 18 months. That takes us to last quarter next year, right? So next year season in how we call it, when the occupancies and rates pick up. That's for the occupancy. Average rates could potentially take another 6 months from there, so which is about a 2-year mark. So between 2 to 2.5 year mark, the occupancy and rate would possibly come back. Now, it's not to say that the entire recovery is going to start 2 years from now. No, that's not what I mean. There's going to be a phased recovery, as all of us know, as the local market kickstarts, then the domestic market kickstarts, then the regional market kickstarts, and the international is going to be the last one to come by. In that sense, what the time frame I'm giving is the totality of recovery when the internationals also start to come back to the hotels. So 18 to 20 months for occupancy, about 24 to 28 months for average rate. And in terms of asset valuations, and I'm going to quote a study by HVS in there, is the general sense is about 3 to 3.5 years. Again, depending on which city in the world you're based in and what is the demand and supply balance. If it's a city with a tremendous amount of unfinished supply, tail wagging behind, those are going to be a little bit longer. But if it's a city, with a reasonably good demand-supply balance, then it is a possibility that around a 3-year mark, the valuations would come back. So that's how we are seeing it.
Saurabh, I read a very interesting interview of yours in BW Hotelier, where you used a very interesting phrase, offense and defense. So if luxury hotels and indies have to go on offense in this market, what are some of the offense strategies they can execute to get travelers back and fill the rooms?
Sure. So yes, I very strongly believe in that, Apurva, and I would kind of overlay that with another statement that I had made, which is move or be moved. So either you move or someone else is going to come and push you over and you will be moved, right? So it's like we're sitting on a chessboard. It is not up to us. When it's our turn, we have to make a move, right? So coming back to your question about the offensive strategy, I think defense is clear. Defense is about recovery. Defense is about winning back what we had, right? Offense is a moment in recognition to the fact that it's going to be a changed playing field. What we had may not exist on the other side. So, if we had 100 and the market size was 100, the market size for that segment may be 60. So you will get 60, but you're now minus 40. So if you're not playing offense in parallel, how are you going to compensate for this minus 40 shortfall? And I can give maybe 2 or 3 recommendations in here. And we were, during our pre warm-up chat before, we were talking about a few of these, right? One is to start thinking about, you know what? Gaming experiences do this very well. For those of us who are connected to the gaming industry, we know that the real money of the business comes from gaming. Accommodation is practically for free. So there's an inspiration to be taken from there in terms of how minimized is their business value attachment to the accommodation product. When you compare that to how us as hoteliers have been approaching the business of hoteliering, room revenue still traditionally is the single largest reliant for all of us for our top line as well as bottom line. That's what we look to yield. And F&B, ancillary, banqueting unless you're a super big convention hotel, these all become afterthoughts. So we almost need to run a conjoint analysis in our mind where we break down the price and value benefit analysis that a consumer does in their mind and start to stitch a story in post-COVID era that relies less and less on room and communicates a story to the consumers, to the buyers, where they start to attach more value to the non-room spend and experiences and opportunities on property. That's one example. It could be food and beverage. So I'll give you a personal example. We took a city break some time back, and we did a voucher purchase, and we went and stayed in a property a few weeks ago. We were dying to as a hotelier. It's been 3 months, and we had to go out and we had to celebrate some big birthdays of the family. So we went out, right? And here's how we analyzed the whole thing. When I saw the room revenue, the room rate in there, right, and I started to evaluate the value additions in the room, and it was very smartly packaged by a partner hotel of ours, and I tip my hat to them. When I started to stack up the value of just food and beverage alone on the side for a family of 4, instantly my mind told me, buddy, the room's for free. It was a slam dunk decision, right? So it was a very thoughtfully curated message where the value to a consumer's mind came in from a non-room parameter. So again, we could use spa, we could use banqueting, or we could redeploy, repurpose some of the physical spaces in the hotel. And this is where I'll come to the second, and possibly for this question, the last suggestion, is in case of hotels that have big banqueting space infrastructure. Because we know MICE is not only going to be the last segment to come back, not only is it going to look very, very different in terms of the future of a buffet style meal and how that is going to look, how are you going to induce the element of social distancing, but also the fact that hotels and the consumers of hotels are becoming extremely tech oriented now, and a lot of banqueting or group travel as it used to take place, particularly in business MICE, not social. Weddings will still happen, celebrations will still happen, but in terms of business group travel, whether it's incentives or meetings or boardroom discussions, etc., A, a lot of it will move virtual, right? And B, a lot of virtual meeting platforms are becoming very popular. They are going to eat into that space. So what are the hotels going to do with the big banquet houses, with the big boardroom setups, with big business floors and all the capabilities around it? Is a small idea about, I can loosely put it as work from hotel. We know that the corporates are sincerely reviewing their spends on office rentals, because suddenly a lot of people are seeing that as an overhead that they can live without, right? It goes straight to the bottom line if you can do away with the rental of your office space. And B, culturally, work from home works for some of us, doesn't work as well for a few of us. So a hotel is a great example of a super hygienic, certified, regulated space with all the tech AV, cool, edgy, funky F&B serviced. And so potentially hotels should start to think about repurposing some part of their meeting space to make it more conducive to work from hotel. And we do have some great examples in our portfolio where hotels have already been optimizing on this opportunity, and they are seen as the best and the most upmarket work hybrid workspace or shared workspace, if you will. This is like the 5-star version of WeWork and an incubator of ideas.
Amazing. I love this idea of work from a hotel, and I'm going to definitely try it.
I do it all the time. It won't let you down, I promise.
I wanted to pick up an audience question, and it's a loaded question. I don't know whether you'd like to answer that, but would all luxury recover at the same pace? So a business luxury hotel versus a leisure luxury hotel. So Taj Palace Delhi versus Leela Hotel, both in similar locations. How do you look at it?
Okay, so just to kind of make sure I understand the question, so you took two examples of two hotels. So am I to assume that the question is if all luxury hotels in the same destination would recover at the same time?
Yeah.
Okay, all right. Well, I think there are two parts to it. There are two elements of recovery. One is external parameters that are beyond hotels' control, which is the government regulations on inbound flights, government regulations and guidelines on quarantine, minimum length of stay restrictions, what kind of COVID checks, etc. These are all external elements. And let's just, for the sake of putting a number, you could put your own number, but I would realistically put, let's say, this would amount for about 60% of the recovery curve. And this 60% would equally apply to all luxury hotels because it's in no one's control. It applies equally, whether shut or open. However, the other side, I think, which in my example here is about 40%, is about what are the factors which are to be regulated, anchored, controlled, set up, installed, and communicated by the hotel in here. And examples of few of these are, number one, many hotels have gone ahead and upgraded. See, in luxury space, health and hygiene was always a very, very big, important parameter, right? COVID has only further enhanced the sense of health, hygiene, sanitation, almost to a hospital level of cleanliness and hygiene, which is great, right? So let's just assume many of the luxury operators are, it's an 18-20 game, but largely all of them have the capability to lift the game to that level. However, the point of differentiation is going to lie in who does the most effective job in communicating what you have done, communicating what you have enhanced to your audience. And there is a further layer of complexity. The messaging has to be unique as for the segment. So how you talk to the end consumer retail versus how you talk to a business traveler versus how you talk to a B2B partner like a travel management company or a luxury travel advisor or a group booker is very, very different. So that communication plan of the good work that you have done in upgrading your health and hygiene standards by itself would be a key determinant to how quickly you recover the demand back. And of course, no prizes for guessing that guys who are able to induce and initiate a segment-wise clear response that connects with the audience of that segment is going to be quick to springboard back to recovery than not.
That brings us to my next question. What do you think is the role which social media can play for luxury and premium business hotels as they think about recovery?
Probably the single largest role. I still continue to feel that, and I say this with utmost respect, is hotels and hotel brands are still, well, let me just flip the other way. There are several other industries that do a much better, spontaneous, and consumer resonating job in managing and optimizing social media than hospitality and travel. However, this is where I think when we got canned and locked down inside the domains of our four walls at homes, this is where we put our thinking hats on. And I'm sure many of us have experienced probably the most experiential, the most storied response being activated by many of our fellow peer brands around the world on social media in the last 3 years. In fact, I'll go a step further to say the content quality and quantum in the last 3 months, to my mind, has been better than the last 3 years put together. So that has shoved us into again, a very fast-paced, accelerated learning curve of optimizing the social media. And I certainly see that as a gift this crisis would have presented to hospitality, to remind us, to educate us, to inspire us to lean more on social connections with our audience around the world. And hopefully we will maintain this good track record that we have, the new gear that we have acquired in the post-recovery period as well.
So at Preferred, is social done centrally, or do hotels take their own decisions, and how does it work?
So, we have a great position, and we of course have a very strong social media team that is managed centrally by our corporate communications and public relations team with a dedicated handle managers in that team. However, we have a great advantage. It's like Apple. We have a great advantage of leaning on user-generated content, right? So we actually lean heavily on UGC, or rather, in our case, it's MGC, member-generated content, right? So we pick up a lot of inspiring stories, whether they are to do with, renovations, new restaurants, and new hotel openings, about sustainability, about community, about giving back from all our hotels worldwide. And we feel that our content gets so if for those of us who follow our handles on Preferred, hashtag the Preferred Life and hashtag Believe in Travel, you would see that a lot of content is so inspirational and generated by our member hotels. Just to answer your question, Apurva, we manage it centrally, but we source a lot of inspirational content from our member hotels around the world.
Sure. So there's a very interesting question on sustainability. So can you give an example of a Preferred hotel which is very closely and strongly associated with sustainability, and how does that drive guest loyalty and pricing?
That is a strong question, and there are many hotels of ours that do it. So it's almost unfair for me to single one out. So if you allow me, I'm not going to call one hotel out, because we have a very strong a giving back program, a corporate social responsibility program called GIFTS, which is great initiatives for today's and tomorrow's society. We have initiatives in environmental space in partnership with an organization called Wine to Water, which is about water filtration and providing drinking water to underprivileged parts of the world. We have initiatives in deploring and curtailing of human trafficking. So we've got various initiatives around it. A lot of our own initiatives actually participate in giving back programs, running marathons, and going in for countryside bicycling and whatnot. So all of us are encouraged for it. But what our hotels do, and how that connects to their market share and average rate, I have readily about 25 names in my head, because these are such inspiring properties that so intensively participate in a lot of our initiatives. These are hotels that give back by way of sponsoring and running schools in underprivileged areas. These are hotels that contribute towards constructing and operating hospitals, taking care of care homes for the elderly, right? So there are so many great initiatives, and what happens is, now this is a fine line to walk in terms of how the sense of giving back needs to be foremost selfless. It needs to be selfless. It has to be, right? But in a very naturalized way, it does connect to travelers coming from around the world who are seeking a transformational experience. Simply put, who are seeking a connection to the destination. So I will say this: any hotel that is sincerely, genuinely, and authentically connected to the community with initiatives like that is naturally able to kind of interweave their social and community commitments into their hotel spaces. Few examples is hotels end up sourcing, some of our hotels sponsor dying forms of art in their backyards, which has been passed on from generation to generation, right? And if it wasn't for the patronage of our partner hotels, they would have been dead and buried. So when they promote and support such an initiative, naturally they are able to showcase that form of authentic, in some cases, indigenous form of art in the hotel spaces. So, you know, waking up in the morning, you know, freshening yourself up in the loo, the art that you're walking through the corridor, waiting in the lobby, having a cup of tea in the breakfast room, the art that you're seeing around that's adding to your atmosphere is giving back. So every moment of your presence in the hotel, whether you buy a cup of coffee or a drink at the bar or your room rent, is supporting that cause of promoting that art. And this transcends to fabric and soft fur. This translates to sourcing local produce in food and beverage and gourmet, art, furniture, decor, wellness, where you source your wellness related supplies from. So it can really go very deep into how it's interweaved into a hotel's experience. And naturally, you know, again, you answer. I'll ask you a counter question in return to say that, look, if you have the choice to spend same amount of $300, that's all we have in our pockets today, folks, no more than $300, right? So if you were to spend this in buying a room product where they sourced your bath amenities from China or from somewhere in the world, the linen was sourced from 10,000 miles away, the glassware and flatware was sourced from some other country, or you have the choice of spending it into a hyper-localized experience that truly connects you to the authenticity, to the fabric of the destination. Where would you put your money if you are an experiential stroke transformational travel seeker?
All the way on experiential travel and unique properties.
Sorry, Apurva, I missed that.
I was saying all the way I would put it on experiential travel and unique properties with the
Me too, right? And this is where, you know, the concept of family travel, the concept of multi-gen travel comes into play. You know, for those of us with kids would relate to it, or, you know, even if you're traveling with your parents or your family, right? There is such a spirit of almost education. You know, travel is one of the best forms of education where you come back enriched. Right? So for those of us with kids, you know, you go to a destination, and if you stay in an experiential property like that, you're able to showcase and educate the children or the future and connect them to the destination in such a intimate way, albeit in a curated setting, right? So that's the magic of experiential properties that are interwoven and hyper-localized.
Absolutely. I'll take one more audience question, Saurabh. The question is, how will the mix between Preferred's own channels, which is your app, website, loyalty program, versus OTA contribution to your member revenues, what is that currently and how will that shift post-COVID? So
this is a moving goalpost. It varies drastically on the kind of hotel. Like I said, you know, we do have some hotels that are in locations which are primarily OTA driven, and that is a function that universally applies to all hotels in that location. So our direct brand contribution happens in a few ways, and I'll give you, in the spirit of transparency, I'll give you a few examples, right? And this is how we assess ROI. If you are a city center, corporate business focused hotel, our barometer of partnership success is your market share. So what is your market share as of the date you join us, and how does the needle move from there? Which is very fair, right? Because you're, let's say, at 60% of your market penetration. If we together go to 80%, that is a credit to the partnership. We don't isolate us versus the hotel because it's a collaborative effort, but it's a credit to the partnership. And the value of that has to be accorded to the partnership, right? Now, on the retail space, our single most powerful tool is I Prefer Hotel Rewards as our loyalty program. And in many cases, we have hyper-engaged hotels that truly embrace I Prefer as their own loyalty program, and they experience the most comprehensive and quickest results, right? So there's a spectrum of engagement on I Prefer, from hyper-engaged to somewhat engaged, right? So depending where the hotel is, the return directly impacts how quickly you acquire a deeper market share out of loyalty. And this relates to OTA. So I was kind of connecting this back with OTA, because OTAs are, as we all know, they're frenemies. We need to work with them. At the same time, we need to manage the relationship with OTAs, or with any partner for that matter, keeping the hotel's commercial interest at the center of it, right? So loyalty, as is the case with hard brands, if optimized and embraced well at the property level, is a very effective tool that has allowed our hotels to manage their relationships with OTA partners way better than not. So just two broad strokes, one example on corporate and one on the retail side via the loyalty angle.
Thank you, Saurabh. That was very useful. We are nearly out of time. So I wanted to do a fun rapid fire round with you
Sure.
so that people know you a little more personally. So my first question, Saurabh, is if you were not a hotelier, what would you have been? A fighter pilot or a soccer player?
Well, you know, in that order, I've harbored both ambitions at some point in life. But right now, definitely a football player, because that's a team sport.
Thank you, and I love that answer. If you could be a comic superhero, who would you be and why?
Ooh, okay. Quick answer: the Iron Man. And I think Iron Man, why? Because, you know, in the story of Avengers, I see Iron Man as a connector and a collaborator. He's the one who got all the other superheroes together and helped them recognize their collective power against the world coming to an end. So an Iron Man for that reason. And plus, of course, I love tech too. So that's another thing that resonates with me about Mr. Stark.
Very good answer. I love it. So, you know, Preferred's leadership recommended best travel movies and songs. So which is one movie which you would recommend, and which is one song which you really like?
You know, I love that, you know, but this is common to me and my wife, and our favorite travel movie is actually The 100-Foot Journey with Om Puri. And, you know, this brings a lot of our personal passions of travel, food, multicultural diversity, you know, and cross-cultural experiences together, because, you know, it's about our Indian family moving from Mumbai to France, and it's all about food and gourmet and restauranting, travel, hotel. So we love that. And the song is funny. I've got a very funny reason why I love this. I absolutely love Bill Withers, and God bless his soul, he passed on a few months ago. And my favorite travel song is A Lovely Day by Bill Withers. And I also love it because, you know, I heard the song and I knew of it, but it got refreshed in my mind because that's the song Emirates plays on takeoff and landing while you're on ground. So I absolutely love that. It immediately connects me with the sense of travel and the spirit around it.
So as soon as things become normal and we can travel, which is the first luxury travel destination which you would like to go to, and why?
It's definitely the Maldives. It's a big favorite with my kids and us as well. And funnily enough, we were booked there twice over. We postponed our holiday in Maldives, so it better be Maldives. I've got promises to keep there.
Completely, it's a lovely destination and it's doing very well in terms of recovery. So,
absolutely.
A drink of your choice: water, wine, espresso, smoothie, whiskey.
I'll take all of the above except a smoothie, possibly in that same order as you called them. I'm a man of diversified taste.
Last one, which is one advice which you want to leave all our hotel colleagues, hospitality colleagues who are on the webinar? What should they do?
You know, okay, simply put, you know, I actually run, I'm very passionate about mentoring young talent. I'm not sure what's the average age group of the audience today, but, you know, I've hit a spot in my life and a moment of recognition that I had, you know, when sitting and introspecting under lockdown is it's never too early to start to give back. And you must give back as long as you have even a little bit to give back, which I do. I don't know it all, but I know some, and I wanted to start with this. So in my mentorship pursuit, the one thing that I'm passionate about, and this is my advice to all our listeners today, is reinvention. And after you've reinvented yourself, is becoming a change agent. And why I say reinvention is because, guys, I don't say this is a marathon, and the world on the other side is going to be changed so drastically that I don't think just marginal changes to who we are, how we approach our business, our market space is going to hold us any good. This is a golden opportunity to use this crisis to sit back and almost open up the playbook and, break it if it ain't broken already, and come up with the new version of you, which is turbocharged to handle the new marketplace on the other side. And once you have been able to restack your playbook, be the change agent. And I think there's going to be a value worth in gold allotted to those of us who are able to come back with this renewed vigor. And not only that, but be ambassadors of change and inspire people around us. So that's my advice, reinvent your game and be a change agent on the other side.
Thank you, Saurabh. That's amazing advice, which I think all of us will remember and try practicing. Thanks to all the audience from around the world joining us for this amazing session. Saurabh, you were a lovely guest. I loved hearing your insights and it connected very deeply with me. You can see my virtual background. This is the Pendry, which is a preferred hotel in Baltimore. It looks amazing.
It does. And thank you very much, Apurva. I enjoyed my conversation with you sincerely, and a big thanks to the RateGain team and to all our listeners today. I thoroughly enjoyed being with you. So thank you.
Thank you. And we look forward to the series continuing with more thought leaders from around the world and learning from their amazing experiences. Watch the space and continue joining and motivating us to do more. Thank you. Have a great weekend ahead.
Thank you all. Stay healthy, stay spirited. Ciao. Bye-bye.
Thank you.